Welcome back to the channel. I'm Amelia, and if you're new here, this is the channel where I actually explain from men's perspective how male attraction works. I'll never tell you what you want to hear, just to make you feel good. Just honest, psychology grounded insight into how men think, feel, and communicate desire. Today, we're getting into something most women completely misread when a man came back. And the first thing most women do is feel it, that rush of something between relief and validation, and the very specific satisfaction of being right that he would return. That feeling is real. It makes complete sense. And if she is not careful, it will cost her everything she built while he was gone. Because the moment he comes back is not the moment to exhale. It is actually one of the most psychologically loaded moments in any situationship, relationship, or reconnection, and almost nobody talks about what to do inside it. The conversation is always about whether to take him back, rarely about how to handle the return itself. And the how matters enormously. What she does in the first hours, the first conversations, the first few days of his reappearance sets the entire tone for what this becomes next. It either reestablishes her as a woman whose presence carries weight, or it quietly communicates that his absence worked exactly the way he, consciously or not, expected it to. Two very different messages, two very different outcomes. There are five specific things that change the dynamic when handled with even a fraction of intentionality. Not five ways to punish him for leaving. Not five power moves designed to make him chase. Five psychologically grounded responses that protect her, reset the dynamic, and give this reconnection, if it deserves one, the best possible foundation to stand on. 1. Do not celebrate his return the moment he reaches out. Something in the nervous system wants to respond with the full weight of everything she felt while he was gone. The relief, the validation, the quiet joy of him choosing to come back. And that impulse is not weakness, it is just human. But acting on it in those first moments is one of the most common ways a woman hands back every bit of ground she gained during his absence, without realizing she is doing it. When a man returns and is met with visible celebration, the excited response, the immediate warmth turned all the way up, the tone that says, "I am so glad you are here," what his nervous system actually receives is confirmation. Confirmation that the absence landed the way absence is supposed to land on someone who needs you. And the moment he feels needed in that way, the dynamic shifts. Not because he is calculating it, because attraction does not respond well to relief, and the male nervous system reads emotional desperation even when it is dressed up as enthusiasm. Think about the difference between two women in the same situation. One responds to his return with obvious excitement, rushing to meet him emotionally, making it easy and warm and immediately comfortable. The other responds with genuine warmth, but a quietness underneath it, pleased to hear from him, but not unraveling about it. One communicates that his absence was an event she endured. The other communicates that his absence was simply a period of time during which she continued to be herself. Those are not the same woman. And he knows it, even if he cannot articulate why one feels different from the other. This is not about performing indifference. Cold is not the goal. The goal is settled. A woman who is settled in herself does not need to perform excitement to prove she is happy, and she does not suppress warmth to prove she is unbothered. She is simply present without being destabilized in either direction. That quality, that groundedness in the moment of his return, communicates something about her that no amount of well-timed silence ever could. His return is not an achievement. It is an opening. And the energy she brings to that opening is the first thing that tells him and herself exactly what kind of chapter this is going to be. 2. Do not immediately resurrect the past. There is a conversation that needs to happen about why he left, what changed, what this return actually means. That conversation is legitimate and it deserves to happen. But the timing of it is everything, and the instinct to have it immediately within the first exchange, the first phone call, the first time they are in the same room again, is one of the most reliable ways to collapse the very energy that brought him back. When he reaches out and the first thing she does is pull the past into the room, what she has essentially done is turn a reconnection into a courtroom. His nervous system, which was already in a slightly vulnerable state by the act of returning, now has to defend, explain, and process all at once, all before anything new has even had a chance to breathe. And the male stress response to that kind of emotional pressure is not openness. It is shutdown or deflection, neither of which gets her the honest conversation she actually deserves. There is also something worth understanding about what his return represents psychologically. He came back because something pulled him forward, a feeling, a memory, a realization. That pull exists in the present. The moment she drags the conversation into the past before that present tense connection has had even a moment to reestablish itself, she disrupts the very thing that motivated his return. His ego, which was already managing the vulnerability of reaching out, suddenly has nowhere comfortable to land. And a man whose ego has nowhere to land tends to get defensive, distant, or vague, and none of which moves things forward. This is not about letting him off the hook. It is about understanding that accountability lands differently depending on when it arises. A woman who can hold the question, who can be present with him without immediately demanding that he account for his absence, communicates something profound about her emotional regulation. She is not suppressing her feelings. She is choosing the moment. And there is a significant difference between a woman who has not processed her feelings and a woman who has processed them well enough to decide when and how to bring them forward. The conversation about what happened will come. It should come. But it hits differently when it arrives after reconnection has been reestablished, rather than before it has had the chance to exist again. Patience in this moment is not passive. It is one of the most quietly powerful things she can do. 3. Reintroduce yourself not with a speech, not with a list of everything she accomplished while he was gone, but with the quiet, undeniable energy of a woman who used the time he was absent to become more of herself rather than less. That is not something she announces. It is something he feels the moment the dynamic reestablishes, and it changes everything about how he reenters. When a man leaves and comes back, there is a version of the return he is subconsciously prepared for. He expects, on some level, to walk back into a familiar emotional landscape. The same dynamic, the same version of her, the same relational temperature he left behind. And when that expectation is quietly disrupted, not aggressively, not performatively, just genuinely, his attention sharpens. Something is different. She is different. And his brain, which is always cataloging change and novelty, has to recalibrate. This is why what she does during his absence matters as much as what she does when he returns. A woman who spent that time genuinely investing in herself, her goals, her friendships, her interior life, the things that make her feel alive and expansive, comes back to the reconnection as a fuller version of herself. Not because she was trying to make a point, because she refused to put her life on pause waiting for a resolution that was not guaranteed. And that refusal, that continued forward motion, shows up in her energy in ways that are impossible to fake and equally impossible to ignore. There is a specific kind of recalibration that happens in a man when he returns to a woman who has visibly moved forward. His assumption that things would simply resume gets interrupted. The dynamic he thought he was walking back into does not quite exist anymore, because she is not quite the same woman he left. She is warmer in some ways, clearer in others, less available for the same emotional patterns that defined things before. Not because she rehearsed this moment, but because growth genuinely changes what a person will and will not settle back into. His ego might register this as a challenge. Good. His attraction will register it as pull. Because a woman who kept becoming during his absence is not someone he can take for granted going forward, and some part of him knows that immediately. She is not a chapter he already finished reading. She is someone he has to pay attention to again. And attention, in the context of reattraction, is exactly where everything begins. For let him do the work there is a very specific discomfort that arrives when a man comes back and is not immediately met with emotional ease. A silence that does not get filled. A question that does not get answered before he finishes asking it. A reconnection that does not get smoothed over by her rushing in to make everything comfortable again. That discomfort is not a problem. It is actually the most important part of this entire process. When a man returns, there is an unspoken negotiation happening beneath the surface of every interaction. His nervous system is assessing the landscape, figuring out what this version of the dynamic looks like, what is expected of him, what kind of effort is required. And if she immediately starts doing the emotional heavy lifting, filling silences, over explaining her feelings, making it easy for him to slide back in without much investment, his nervous system receives a very clear message. That message is that the cost of entry is low. And things with a low cost of entry do not get treated with much care. This is where stoic restraint becomes genuinely practical rather than philosophical. The discipline to not overfunction in this moment, to resist the pull to smooth everything over, to let the silence sit, to allow him to be the one reaching across the gap. That discipline is what separates a reconnection that reestablishes real attraction from one that simply resumes old patterns. Old patterns that, it is worth remembering, already led to him leaving once. Think about what it communicates when she lets him leave the reconnection. When he is the one initiating the deeper conversations, when he is the one making the plans, when he is the one working to reestablish the emotional connection rather than being handed it already assembled. It communicates that she is not afraid of the possibility that he might not do the work, that she has enough self possession to wait and see who he actually shows up as, rather than preemptively making it easy because she is afraid of what happens if she does not. That quality, that willingness to let the moment reveal him, is one of the most attractive things a woman can bring to a reconnection. His anxiety might push him to move quickly, to reestablish comfort fast, to get back to familiar ground before she changes her mind. That anxiety is information. A man who is genuinely invested will do the work even when it is not made easy for him. A man who fades the moment the path has any friction was never coming back for the right reasons. Either way, letting him do the work does not cost her anything. It only ever reveals something she needed to know. Section 5, thing number 5. Decide with your mind, not the moment the feeling of him coming back is its own kind of intoxication. Not in a dramatic sense, just in the quiet, deeply human way that being chosen again after uncertainty activates something real in the nervous system. The anxiety of his absence starts to dissolve. The questions that kept her up at night suddenly feel less urgent. There is a warmth to the reconnection that can feel, in that moment, like evidence, like the situation resolving itself into something good. And that feeling, as real as it is one of the least reliable sources of information she has access to in this moment. Reunion emotions are powerful precisely because they are not about the present. They're a cocktail of relief, nostalgia, the validation of being returned to, and the neurological reward of anxiety finally releasing its grip. None of that is an accurate read of who he is now, what has actually changed, or whether this reconnection deserves to become something real again. It is just the nervous system exhaling. And making a decision about her future from inside that exhale is one of the most common ways intelligent women end up back in situations they already outgrew. This is where she has to separate feeling from discernment. Not suppress the feeling, it is there, it is valid. It does not need to be argued with. But alongside it, running quietly and without drama, there needs to be a part of her that is watching, observing what he actually does rather than what his return implies. Is he explaining himself or expecting to be received without explanation? Is he showing curiosity about who she has become or assuming she is the same? Is his energy consistent or does it peak in the moments when he wants something and flatten when the immediate need is met? These are not cynical questions. They're necessary ones. The psychology of reattraction is interesting because it can mimic the feeling of genuine growth when nothing has actually shifted. He misses her, she feels it. The reconnection feels different because absence created contrast, and contrast can look a lot like change without being change. A man who has genuinely reflected and shifted shows up differently in his behavior over time, not just in his tone during the first few conversations. Behavior over time is the only data that means anything. The first few interactions are just the audition. Deciding with her mind does not mean being cold or withholding or treating him like a suspect. It means staying in her own body, staying connected to what she actually knows about this situation rather than only what she feels in this particular moment. It means giving the reconnection room to prove itself rather than deciding in advance what it is going to be. The heart can be open and the mind can still be clear. Those two things are not in conflict. They're actually the most powerful combination she can bring to this doorway. Conclusion: these five things are not about punishing him for leaving or performing strength she does not feel. They are about showing up to his return as a woman who knows what she is worth and is paying attention to what he is actually showing her. Do not celebrate the return. Do not resurrect the past before the present has had room to breathe. Reintroduce the version of herself that kept moving. Let him close the gap. And decide from clarity, not from the relief of being chosen again. His return is not the answer. It is a question. And how she responds to it tells both of them everything. If this hit close to home, drop your experience in the comments. I read every single one and will be reaching out. If this video gave you something real, like it, share it with a woman who needs to hear it. And if you are not subscribed yet, that is the most important thing you can do right now. Do not miss what is coming next.